All right, hello everybody. I'm Josh with DNS Filter, and we're an internet security and filtering company, and we operate at the DNS or domain name system level, which really encompasses every device and every application that goes online. So we're able to block at every level and every layer. And we believe organizations should have an elegant way to block threats and inappropriate content online. So I'm eager here to get started, but I'll wait a little bit for any late joiners that are joining our webinar here today. I'm broadcasting live from my home office in Augusta, Georgia, as I know many of us are at home right now. But I'm really excited to talk about the anatomy of a phishing attack. So today we're going to go all into what encompasses a phishing attack, and most importantly, now that you understand the ins and outs of how it works, that you'll be able to protect your organizations against phishing attempts. So really excited about the content, and please provide any feedback at the end. We love to make sure that we're providing great content that is really going to be useful to you, especially those of you who are managed services providers. So let's go ahead and get started. We have a really simple agenda today. We're going to go over what is a phishing attack, and then we're going to go, just to get a broad definition of everything. And then we're going to look a little bit deeper and see all the nuance that's involved in planning and executing these types of attacks. And then lastly, we're going to look at ways to mitigate phishing attacks. So first, what is phishing? So let's provide a definition for our time together. So phishing is when someone sends an email that impersonates a trusted party, such as a bank, a credit card company, an insurance company, so that you give up sensitive information. So the intent of the attack is to fool you. So there's a few elements here, right? So first is impersonation, and that's why phishing is so tricky. It's not an obvious thing. It's something that has the appearance of legitimacy. So yourself or the users in your organization are easily tricked into giving up sensitive credentials because the email can look legitimate. The site can look legitimate. And so much in the same way as if you've ever seen those housing developments where they have kind of the sample house that they will give you a tour of so you can see everything. From the outside, it looks real. It looks like a real house, and then you walk inside and it's plastic fruit and everything's fake. That's the same way of a phishing attack. It looks real on the outside until you get in. The second element is that it appears to come from a trusted party. So there is already in the user's mind a notion of trust. So if I got an email from something that appeared to be my bank, I don't view that as just a blank entity. I view it as someone I already trust. I already have good feelings of, knowing this company and doing business with this company in the past. And so phishing attacks leverage that. But we also see the purpose of a phishing attack, right? It's to collect sensitive information. The whole goal is to get that form fill on sensitive details. So whether that's social security number, credit card number, payment information, that's the goal of a phishing attack. Spear phishing is related, but it tends to be more targeted, right? That's why they're using spear as the example here. An example of this is CEO fraud, where the email attempts to come from an internal user in the organization, CEO, another C-suite executive, and so it leverages the existing relationships in an organization to do that. So let's look at phishing attacks in contrast. So I have 4 types of attacks outlined here. You can see the standard virus and the goal. So the goal often in a virus attack is revenge, ransom, or stealth. So viruses obviously involve deploying a software package onto host devices, and then the purpose of the virus is usually to inflict harm on computing devices. So the attacker could be an ex-employee, could be someone who's disgruntled, and their goal isn't necessarily to get money. Their goal is to actually bring systems down, to freeze computing resources. So again, revenge motivation. Then there's man-in-the-middle attacks. The goal of this type of attack is often information gathering. It can be a precursor to another style of attack, and so they're wanting to get more information about the network, about the systems, so that they can exploit them later. The unique thing about a man-in-the-middle attack is you do not have to deploy any packages onto target devices. And so it involves sniffing on the wire and seeing communication as it happens. So there might not be much evidence of this type of attack if they're doing it correctly. One example of this is the Wi-Fi Pineapple, where you can set up a fake Wi-Fi access point outside of Starbucks and collect information that way. So third, there's the denial of service attack. This is commonly something that takes place over DNS. A lot of times when people mention DDoS attacks, distributed denial of service attacks, they are talking about it taking place over DNS. This type of attack is aimed much of what a virus is doing, but at a much larger scale. So the intent is to seriously degrade system resources. So to bring an entire website down or an entire network down by flooding it with traffic. And so often the motivation for this type of attack is competition, hacktivism, could be another political motivated thing such as that. Lastly, we have phishing, right? And phishing, we just went over, has the singular purpose of collecting what we call PII, or personally identifiable information, credit card numbers, social security, where you live, etc. So more than any of these other types of attacks that we've outlined, phishing is uniquely positioned, uniquely designed to trick you and fool you. And that is why it is one of the most successful types of attacks today, even in 2020. It's very easy to implement and it works very well. Why is that so, right? So if you look at a phishing attack, 92.4% of malware is distributed via email. So we know the channel is email. And when it comes to success, we know email is very vulnerable. So 30% of phishing messages are opened and 12% of them are clicked. So that means more than 1 in 10 users in your organization will click the link in a phishing email. They will respond to that email. And that's a huge problem when you really think about it. If they were to click the link on a phishing email and it pretended to be the bank that your business does business with, what type of accounting information could they give over? What type of finances and funds could be just transferred out of your organization's pocketbook in minutes? So this is the type of thing that we really need to consider as we go through today. Phishing can be extremely devastating to a business in a matter of moments. And it's very easy to deploy these attacks and very easy to get fooled by these attacks. Because remember, your users are thinking, this is a trusted entity. This is the bank that we use all the time. They're not noticing that the domain name is just one letter off because the attacker purchased a domain name similar to your bank. Let's take a deeper look at phishing attacks. So I have a few more statistics for you as we go through here. So 35% of phishing sites use valid SSL. This is a trend that's been increasing over the past few years. There's actually an organization called the Anti-Phishing Working Group, and they put together these statistics. So a lot of your users will see a green lock icon in the web browser, and that communicates a sense of security, a sense of trust. But that doesn't mean that the website you're accessing is a legitimate place. It just means that your connection to that website is secure. So if you're connecting securely to a phishing website, that doesn't really help you much. But phishers have caught on to the fact that it can easily trick users when that green lock icon is displayed. So this is a trend we've noticed increasing. The phishing websites will use this. 43% of data breaches use phishing. You can see that on the right here. And in the middle, when you look at this chart, you can see the types of entities which are commonly mimicked in a phishing attack. And so it's a very disproportionate statistic. There's actually a handful of sites that are commonly the most mimicked sites. So one of them is Dropbox. One of them is G Suite, right? Google Mail and related apps. The other one's Office 365. And there's a few banks such as SunTrust and Bank of America that are often what you'll see in the email being mimicked. Easy, right? Because a lot of people use these services, and so you can cast a wide net and know that you will succeed in getting some people. So let's look, this is a list of data breaches displayed graphically by how big they are. And you'll see huge people here. You see Facebook, Canva, Capital One. In late November in 2018, Marriott revealed that they actually had been hacked and sensitive data for 500 million guest accounts were stolen. And the attackers actually had a foothold for over 14 years in their system. So it's a big problem for huge companies and for small companies as well. So let's talk about how a phishing attack is prepared. There's really two steps here. There's the website and the email itself. So first, what happens for a website is the attacker goes, they register a cheap domain name, could be less than $1 to obtain a cheap domain name, and they try to mimic a trusted domain. The other thing that they could do is deploy a package onto an existing site, commonly WordPress. And so what they'll do is they'll piggyback off of the trust that that domain already has rather than establishing a new one. So those are the two most common methods that people will do. There's phishing packages that you can commonly download online, and then they will deploy these phishing packages onto that site. You can see here this screen right here, and I want to ask whether or not people think that this is legitimate or not. So I'm going to go ahead and start a poll. This looks really like a G Suite login. So I want to ask how many people think this is a real login box and how many think that this is fake. All right, got a couple fake responses so far here. So it didn't fool a lot of people on this webinar. And probably that's because when you look closely, you'll see that even though the outside looks a lot like G Suite, that you probably wouldn't use your AOL account or your Yahoo account as single sign-on into G Suite. Now you know this as someone who's skilled in IT, but your users may not, and especially if it's a split-second decision, right? They're taking advantage of the fact that you log in like this all the time, multiple times a day. And if you're not paying attention, you can easily get caught up in something like this. So the second step is the email. So there's two broad categories of phishing emails. One will be transactional emails. These are regular programmatic emails. So think of things like, just a regular confirmation from your bank of a funds transfer, or a similar email such as that, asking you to confirm something, asking you to log into your account and validate something. That's transactional emails. The second type will be a newsletter. So this is something that just appears to be very harmless. Just log in, check out those new products we have. For example, if they're mimicking Amazon, check on your cart, things like that. There's 6 common signs within a phishing email, if you look, that you can actually spot that something is a phishing email. So number 1, you can see here on this sample email, we have a suspicious sender address. So this is pretending to be from a bank, but they changed the name of the domain name by 1 letter. They actually lobbed off Acme Bank into just cmebank.com. And so that's how they spoof the sender address. The second is a sense of urgency, right? Because they don't want you to do something next week or next month. They want you to log into your account now. They want you to confirm the funds transfer now. And so there'll be a sense of urgency in a phishing email that you need to respond right away, or else there might be a negative consequence, such as you're losing money or not having some piece of information for much longer. The third is that the generic greeting, right? They don't know your name. They are not actually your bank or Google, so they don't know who you are. They just know your email address. And so a lot of the language will be very generic in a phishing email because of that. The next thing is you'll notice a lot of spelling and grammatical mistakes. Sometimes these are written by people that are not American, not English speaking. Obviously, phishing is a worldwide thing, but oftentimes it's not written by someone skilled in the use of English language. The fifth thing is a link or a mask to an invalid domain. People here probably know that you can link to a separate thing as what the link displays. So the link can say click here, but then it goes somewhere on the internet. So this link right here is actually a different link visibly than where it actually goes. And so this can commonly trick users. The last is often there'll be a suspicious attachment, and this may be used to deploy a package which can monitor activity on the computer. So the timeline, right, they send a phishing email, the user gives their information, and oftentimes the user is actually redirected to the legitimate site in which they were trying to go to. So for example, fake G Suite login, user fills in the form, and then they get an error that says, oh, your login was incorrect, and then they get redirected to the real G Suite homepage. So the user might not even think that they just got tricked. They might think that they entered their password incorrectly or something like that. And so they just gave up their details and didn't even notice that it happened. We've also seen in the past few years more complex phishing packages that will also check the referrer, or the HTTP referrer coming in. What this means is that if they know that you visited something like Phish Tank or a similar site to check the website before visiting it, they will actually notice that information and redirect you so that you don't experience the attack, so that it's able to be online longer, undetected by security software. So what can you do to mitigate phishing? I've divided this into the left and the right side here, so you can see there's things that you can do as an administrator, as a user in your organization, and there's things that your security software can do to help you. Phishing is actually very easy to significantly reduce the risk. So although it's a widespread problem, there are a few simple things that you can do to actually make it much less likely that you would be susceptible to a phishing attack. So let's go over that here. The first is training. User education is huge. A lot of people don't know what to look for in a phishing email. They're not aware specifically of how a phishing attack takes place. And so even some simple education really helps users. You can also run fake campaigns. So you can actually phish your users using something like Kingfisher, GoPhish, or a few other paid solutions that are out on the market. And so you can run a phishing attack against your own organization and see the results and see which users are more susceptible, so you can give them some additional training. The second thing you can do is implement second-factor authentication. Second-factor authentication has been around for a few years now. It's very popular, and so people are pretty well aware of it. But what this allows you to do is have a rotating key or a text message sent to your phone that's different every 60 seconds or so. And this allows you to separate the password from a secondary form of authentication so that as phishers gain that information, they can't do much with it. The other thing that you can do is implement a password manager. This helps you because you separate passwords. So phishing attacks can be devastating because if they know your password on one entity, such as G Suite, they can try other entities and see if that same password and that same user line up with other services as well. And so what could have been an attack restricted to one service becomes an absolute disaster because it's spread across multiple services and they can gain access to many sensitive systems that way. So by implementing a password manager, you restrict the scope of a phishing attack to only one compromised system if you're using it effectively. There's also things that your security software can do. So one is the incorporation of multiple threat feeds. One security vendor cannot protect you from every type of attack. So for example, what we do at DNS Filter is we have our in-house artificial intelligence scanner, and we also pair that with other external threat feeds. So we actually receive over 66 external threat feeds and incorporate that into one product so that you're able to be protected from what other people are seeing in the security research world. The second thing you can do is implement new domain gray listing. So what that basically is when someone registers a new domain on the internet, you give a holding period of 30 days, for example. So this restricts people from accessing that domain in your organization for that period of time. What we see is that often phishing attacks are fly-by-night operations. They kick off one day and then they're gone the next. And so this actually can stop people dead in their tracks from accessing a brand new website that could be a phishing site. The third thing is that you can use machine learning. So AI has been disruptive in nearly every industry. It's been making waves, all in many different industries, obviously. When it comes to threat analysis, AI is actually very good because it can spot things that humans can't spot. So for example, a phishing attack fools us because we see an image and it looks the same as the login box that we're used to seeing. But to AI, it can look at the code behind the scenes, check the headers, check other aspects of the website that don't line up. And it's trained to use these different markers and to look at that individually. And because it knows through repeated learning, repeated exposure to different types of sites, it's able to spot those patterns more easily than a person can. The other problem is that if you're not using AI to classify websites, your alternative is people. And the web makes 200,000 new domains every single day. So it's impossible for people to classify the internet as fast as the internet is expanding. And so that poses a huge problem and a wide open area for threats. That is it. We have covered in depth a phishing attack today. I want to explain a little bit about DNS Filter if you haven't heard of us before. We operate the world's largest DNS Anycast network. We're actually the fastest network in North America. And we do real-time threat protection at the DNS level. So we allow you to limit access. We allow you to be protected from phishing websites. And we allow you to see the activity in your organization. Because DNS is so central to the foundation of the internet, anything that people are browsing or looking at online, you're able to see those DNS requests in your dashboard. And so if you look here, you can see an example of what that web dashboard looks like. We have roaming clients for every single operating system, every major operating system that exists. And you're able to easily create policies, assign different policies to users. So for example, if you also wanted to restrict social media for only during work hours, then you could easily do that, as well as to protect people from threats. We also have a trial offer today, a 2x trial offer for MSPs. And so if you're interested in that, I will go ahead and release that offer for you now. And we also have some other events this week. So we have an office hours and happy hour tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern. So please join us, especially if you're an MSP. We're going to go over an Active Directory integration that we've just developed. And then we'll have a breakout session where MSPs can chat amongst themselves and just hang out together. Again, this week our theme is really waiting for DattoCon, because DattoCon was supposed to take place this week and it's been postponed due to coronavirus. And so we wanted to do something where MSPs are still able to hang out and connect this week. So please join us for that. That's tomorrow at 4 p.m. And then we'll also have another session on Wednesday comparing DNS Filter to Cisco Umbrella. So thank you very much. We will release the handout for this session as well as pre-recording of the video so that you can watch that as well. Thanks.